Okay, this is good. Apple is finally doing the last spec refresh for this dated iMac design. I know what you're all thinking, where is the updated redesign? But if you've been watching my most recent Twitch streams or even videos about the updated iMac design, you know that we weren't expecting it to come out in August, right? Okay, I thought that was a given. No, this is probably going to be the last iMac rocking Intel processors that Tim Cook even said was coming out back at Quadruple U DC. He was like, we've still got a few more Intel Macs in the pipeline, which is why a lot of people are gonna feel neglected to buy this one, and that's probably why Apple threw in some sweet perks with this iMac we got today. So let's begin. The running theme I got from today's iMac refresh is that the 27-inch iMac is the star of the show. He gets all the special treatment, he gets all the nice perks, and everybody else has to wait in the back. Because the 21.5-inch iMac barely got that many changes. For one, they're still shipping that 1080p iMac. Yep, it's still rocking around. SSDs are now standard with the 21.5-inch iMac lineup, but if you were hoping the Fusion drives would just go away entirely, sadly, that's not the case here, because you still can configure to 1 terabyte Fusion drives at no additional charge. So if you care more about having more storage space instead of faster storage, you still have that option. But by default, Apple is making 256 gig SSD standard with the iMac lines, which is better than before, but honestly still 256 feels fairly low. And there's also no new processors or GPU options or any changes with the display when it comes to the 21.5-inch lineup, because it's still the same 4K panels. Again, it's the same processors, so there's very little updates there other than just SSDs becoming standard now. However, with the 27-inch iMac, we got a whole bunch of changes that a lot of us were not expecting. So for one, 1080p webcam, which we've wanted for so long, so thank you, Apple. Finally giving the iMac Pro style webcam to the 27-inch iMac lineup. The prices seem to be about the same as before, but with much better specs. So we've got 10th generation Intel processors. You start out with 6 core, but you can configure all the way up to 10 cores. You can also get up to 128 gigs of RAM now. And finally, I was wondering when they were going to do this, you can finally buy an iMac with an 8 terabyte SSD. So before, it maxed out at around 2 terabytes. Now it goes all the way up to 8, which is nice. And the iMac Pro still does not support 8 terabytes. I don't know why it's getting neglected, but iMac Pro is absolutely on its way out, I think. Based on how they're treating the 27-inch iMac, it's also now getting this new nano texture option for an additional $500, which gives this more matte finish. It's kind of been an option for a while on the Pro Display XDR, so it was very unexpected, and I'm surprised to see them now offering that with $2,000 iMacs. But again, Apple probably knows everyone wants to wait for the Apple Silicon branded iMac, so they're trying to sweeten the deal and try to find some type of options here that you couldn't get elsewhere. And the iMac Pro still does not get that $500 nano texture option, so that is once again exclusive to the 27-inch iMac. Also, what's new is the internal T2 security chip, which we've had on MacBooks for a while, but now it's finally on the iMac. This allows for Hello Siri support, which is good, and it's probably going to help that there's some updated microphones on this iMac as well. Better than before, and likely more mics than you got with the iMac Pro, so that's of course appreciated. But the I/O sadly has not changed, so you're still rocking 4 USB 3.0 ports, 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, a gigabit Ethernet port, and an optional 10 gigabit Ethernet port, and of course SD card slot and headphone jack still sticking around in 2020, as well as updated GPU options, which thankfully should now allow you to connect the Pro Display XDR to this iMac if you want, and finally get that full 6K outputted resolution, which iMac Pro still to this day cannot handle. It has to output at 5K because the internal processors and graphics cards are too dated for Apple's 6K resolution. On one hand, I was also happy to see Bluetooth 5.0 finally made its way onto the iMac. It's a fairly dated design, but the internals are still getting more up to date. But I'm also surprised there's no Wi-Fi 6 still in August of 2020. They're not putting Wi-Fi 6 in their Macs, and I was really expecting them to with these next generation Intel processors, which if you're seeing how much effort they're putting into the iMac specs now, you know, maxed out, this thing is like $9 grand. It makes perfect sense to me that they're planning on the 27-inch iMac kind of covering the market that the iMac Pro used to cover, you know, all the way up to that $9,000 price point. And now if Apple says, you know, if you're interested in a Mac that's over $9,000, you might as well just go with the super modular, super customizable Mac Pro. But if you're into the all-in all-in-one designs and stuff like that, you better just stick with the regular iMac, because I'm already sure, without even doing speed tests, that the graphics performance, the processing performance, and all that stuff is probably better on today's just announced 27-inch iMac than it is the iMac Pro. So the iMac Pro is more than likely going to be discontinued within a year or so once they start rolling out the updated Apple Silicon-based Macs, and it's very safe to say, based on what we're hearing about that updated iMac, which I know some of you were probably expecting me to be disappointed, or maybe you're disappointed because you were thinking, wait, I thought redesigned iMac was coming soon. Well, it is. It's definitely in the pipeline, and I'm still convinced that that updated design language is being reserved for the Apple Silicon Mac. So the good news is this is probably going to be the last Intel iMac we see. From here on out, it's going to be only Apple Silicon Macs, and I'm not that disappointed because there was talk for a long time that there was going to be one last site refresh, and I tried to make that obvious during my streams or during videos or podcasts that, hey guys, we might still get one more boring iMac refresh, just where the design doesn't change, but the internals get a little bit better, just to hold us over until whenever this updated iMac comes out, which we've been saying for a while now is at best case scenario going to be Q4 of this year, or now much more likely Q1 or Q2 of next year. In fact, it would probably make perfect sense to announce an updated design at Worldwide Developers Conference next year, I would say at the very latest. So I don't think it's even quite a year away, but it's absolutely coming, because Tim Cook said, you know, there's more Intel Macs coming, and Apple Silicon transition is only going to take 2 years. So if you're in dire need of a desktop iMac and you like a lot of the changes they talked about today, then I guess this is good, but I totally understand for most of you who aren't in a hurry, you probably want to wait on this one, because I'm sure the processing speed and the graphics and updated webcam and all these updated internal specs, these are all great, but none of them are going to be as cool as the updated iMac design language we're likely going to see next year, and there's only 4 months left in 2020, guys, so just wait a little bit longer if you want that giant refresh. But if you don't care about thin bezels and you just like the specs of today's Mac, then by all means go ahead. I still think that Mac will get plenty of years of software support, and yeah, the only change the iMac Pro got today was just that 10 cores is now the base model, so they got rid of the 8-core iMac Pro. The price stayed the same, there's no other GPU changes, there's no other processor upgrades, you still are limited to 4 terabytes of storage on the iMac Pro, so that's absolutely on the way out. It was totally a placeholder meant to be powerful enough for the pros until the Mac Pro came out. Now that it's out, iMac Pro is kind of redundant, and we'll likely see the 30-inch or 24-inch iMacs with Apple Silicon next year to replace the iMac Pro and the current day iMacs that just got refreshed. So what do you guys think of these changes? I'm kind of happy with them. I'm glad we got this out of the way. This ends the Intel age of the iMac on a high note, and thankfully, I believe it still qualifies for the back-to-school free AirPods promotion. So if you want to get one, pick up some free AirPods while you're at it. And feel free to hit me up over on Twitter, join my Discord. We can chat more about it there if you want. This is your Alp Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.